Ladies and gentlemen, on your feet, it's Daytona!
It's a long way to the top. If you want to rock and roll, you want to rock and roll?
Good evening, race fans. I'm your host, Caden Reif, and welcome back. It's the 2007 season of the NASCAR Coca-Cola Cup Series. We're here from Daytona. It's the 49th annual running of the Daytona 500 under the Florida sun. Here today for some plate racing action. A brand new season, a lot of new stories, a lot of new faces, and a lot of fun to be had. But we take you to the racetrack and to your starting lineup in today's race. It's the biggest stage here today as Robbie Gordon, the defending Cup Series champion, puts his number 31 Chevrolet on pole here at Daytona. And starting second next to him on the front row is going to be Martin Truex Jr. in the number 28 car. Dual winners, number 24 of Jeff Gordon starts in P number 3, got a great car underneath of him, and Kyle Busch in the 43 is going to be in the 4th position, winner of dual number 2. David Rudiman in the 98 is going to start top 5, he's 5th in that number 98 car for Aikens. Number 88 of Dale Jr. is in P6. 7th place belongs to Mike McLaughlin's number 26. That's Petty Haas Carter. And 8th is DJ Kennington in the 81. 9th place, John Andretti in the 21 machine, bringing Wood Brothers a top 10 starting spot in the 500. Jeremy Mayfield, the 2nd Petty car in the 54. He's in P10. 11th belongs to the Bud Shootout winner. That's Ryan Newman's number 38. And Jacques Villeneuve making his Cup Series debut tonight. He is in the 12th spot. Brad Keselowski, P number 13 in the 2, back in that car this year. Number 14th spot, that's going to be the number 12 Casey Kane in P14, side by side with his teammate. Clint Boyer, P15 in the 4, led a lot of laps in his duel number 1, has a great race car underneath him, and a confident start for him to Speed Weeks, and now into the points race with a fantastic showing. Ricky Hendrick in the 16th spot in the 5. Juan Pablo Montoya making his first points race here today. He's in the 17th spot, and Matt Kenseth starts side by side with him in 18th. Justin Allgaier, the 3rd and final Penske car. He is part-time in the O2 this year. He is in the 19th spot. Tony Stewart rounds out the top 20 in the number 42. Scott Steckley, part-time in the 6th for Roush this year, running the full Busch season. He's 21st. J.J. Yaley making his Cup Series debut in P22. Todd Bodine going to be 23rd place. and Ron Hornaday Jr. rounds out row 12. He is in the number 1 car. Ryan McGlynn in the 07 P25, and Casey Atwood will be in the 26th position. Brian Keselowski races the front row 34 into the show. He's in 27th, joined by another race in. That's Eric Norris's number 51 car in 28th. Jeff Burton going to be P number 29, and Jimmy Johnson in the 48 is going to be in P number 30. Carl Edwards in the 19, he's 31st. Kurt Busch is going to be in the 32nd position side by side with him. Couple of Hendrick cars. Casey Mears in 33rd and Brian Vickers in 34th. Rough duel for them, but they've got a long way to go here on Sunday. Elliott Sadler's going to start in 35th, side by side with last year's Daytona 500 champion Bobby Labonte in 36th. 37th, Kevin Harvick in the 20, Greg Biffle in P number 38. 39th goes to Jason Leffler in the 00. Scott Riggs will be in 40th. Rounding out the field, Jamie McMurray, who had to go to a new engine after losing a motor in Thursday night's duels. He's 41st. And Scott Wimmer, last place finisher in his duel of the locked-in drivers, rounds out the field in 42nd place. 42-car field, as always. New season, new car, new everything. We get started here and take you to the racetrack for the most famous words in motorsports, the command here from Daytona.
Drivers, start your engines!
Field roars to life as we get set on a brand new season, but it's a familiar face up front. Robbie Gordon, the 2006 Cup champion, gonna roll us off in first, and we have a long, long race in front of us today. An 80-lapper here from Daytona, and it is anybody's game here. We talk about this race. Plate tracks are always so difficult in their own way. It's such a fun type of racing to watch, and of course, well, as we mentioned, it's anybody's game. Last year, Bobby Labonte in the 18 won this race. He started dead last. Scott Wimmer in the 23 is the one in that position here today, so it could be any one of these drivers walking out of here with that trophy.
It absolutely could, and as much as it is everybody's game, there are guys who just have a knack for this style of racing, because it's one thing to just sit in the draft and wait. It's another to actually be confident enough in your car to make moves, and we'll see how quickly people are able to do that. You know, they're going to try to be getting used to this car. You know, some guys didn't get to race the shootout. The duels were their only chance to see how this car drives. So expect to see maybe a little bit of easiness early, but as we get further into this race, expect to see more confidence out of these guys.
Without a question, as Gordon leads the field down the backstretch here. Apologies for the restart here. Had to clear a mechanical issue on the 48 car. But nonetheless, coming to the start here as Gordon and Truex going to lead the field. We talk about these new faces, a lot of new places for these guys. A lot of familiar guys in different spots. Of course, Truex in the outside pole here tonight in that 28 car. Was in the 8-4 Childress last year. Makes the move over to Yates. Yates has a pretty new lineup, of course. Truex and Newman both coming over to that team this year. We see Mayfield in a brand new car back there. That's the 54 for Petty. And a lot of other drivers that have made moves. We got a chance to talk about them in the shootout and the duels, but all of the bets are off. It is time to go racing here today and get a new season underway in this Gen 5 stock car. The first time we see this car racing in a points race and with a full field of 42 cars. Field off of turn number 4 here. Chevrolet Camaro pace car going to peel off on the left. Robbie Gordon and Martin Truex Jr. to lead the field to the green, and we are underway in 2007 here in the Daytona 500. Field up to speed now off of turn number 4, leading the opening lap. It will not be the pole sitter. Jeff Gordon leads lap number 1, but already side by side with him for the race lead is David Rudiman's number 98 car on the bottom. And we see the plate shuffle already beginning to take hold. A couple of leaders early 98 has a top spot leaving turn 2 this time as we head down the backstretch. Field of 42 cars all alive and well and kicking as we are all the way up to speed now, over 190 miles an hour.
Mike McLaughlin now in the 26, looking for the race lead, pushed by John Andretti. And the Bud Shootout winner, Ryan Newman, right behind them. Expect him to be aggressive. We saw in that race, was able to win that race by throwing an aggressive block on Tony Stewart and being able to hold his track position down to the line. So I expect Ryan Newman to have a good race car and be someone that we could see up here at the end of this race.
Without a question, as Andretti's the next to take the lead. We've seen 3 different leaders in as many laps now. See if Andretti's going to be the one that has the lead at the stripe this time by. Got a fellow Ford behind him, Keselowski in the 2 to the bottom behind the 38. As a lot of Pontiacs lined up down there, 284.02. See Allgaier's number 02 there, 3 wide. Montoya not going to stick behind the 2. As we start to see these guys filter out a little bit and run a little bit of 3 wide. They sort it out at the front of the field. Andretti will have the lead coming back to the line this time. Now Montoya gets split by the Penske duo. A lot of aggressive racing at the front early in the going here today.
Yeah, and definitely seeing a bit more confidence, especially out of these younger guys like Justin Allgaier, who have never had to drive this car, but to be fair to him, most of these guys have not really gotten to drive this car. So if you're going to have your first Cup race, this is not a bad way to do it. In a brand new car, everybody's learning just like you. And we've seen from Justin Allgaier how good he is at this plate racing in the Busch Series. You could have a chance up here.
Off to a pretty good start, couldn't lead the lap. It's Matt Kenseth followed by his teammate Steckley leaving turn 4 this time, as he's going to be pushed by the 6 up to the front of the field and leads his first lap of the day. Todd Bodine's number 77, who led a handful of laps in the duels, also making an appearance up front here. Pushed by the 07 of Ryan McGlynn down there on the bottom. Has a chance to maybe take the lead here off of turn 2. Kenseth down to block him as they head through the corner. 3 deep behind the race leaders.
And Todd Bodine is a previous winner here at Daytona. He was able to win the night race last season. So he is somebody who definitely does have a knack for this kind of racing. Somebody who we see just kind of work his way meticulously through the draft. And that Jasper 77 looked really, really good in the duels. Expect him to be a name that we watch going forward in this race.
Without a question, off to a very good start. Him and Kenseth clear in front of the field right now. Running away a little bit from third place, that's now Tony Stewart, who just got underneath the 07 of McGlynn to pull back up to the leaders as they leave turn number 2 this time. It's still Kenseth out front, as Bodine's going to be side by side for second place here. First time we've seen anyone lead a couple laps in a row is the 17 car.
We're starting to see a lot more 3 wide throughout the field now, as these guys have started to get an outside lane going. Hasn't really been able to find the speed of the bottom, which hasn't really been a play throughout the history of this racetrack. But the top lane got a lot of cars up here. We'll see if they can try to push their way to the front.
Absolutely, Kenseth doing the best he can to keep leading this race. Carl Edwards in the 19 is the next challenger to second place. Takes Elliott Sadler with him. Lot of 3 wide. It's a dangerous racetrack to be 3 wide. Obviously, we talk about this place is a lot more narrow than Talladega is, so it's really difficult to run this, but these guys are experienced as any, and everybody's managed to work it so far. Through the mid-pack, still calm and clean at the moment. Less 3 wide this time by. We see it a little bit towards the back end of the field and a couple rows in the front. It's Casey Mears' number 55 caught in the middle there behind the leaders. And you see this field churn that always takes place at these races. Scott Wimmer in that 23, we mentioned him starting in 42nd, is already inside the top 10. And rearing his head up front, Kenseth finally going to get dethroned from the lead. Here comes Kevin Harvick's number 20 on the bottom.
And one of the things that these drivers have talked about with these Generation 5 cars is that they're a lot less aerodynamic than the cars they were previously driving. So whenever they get 3 wide, it's a lot harder to hold your lane. So props to these guys for being able to not only hold on, would be able to not cause a crash as well. Jimmy Johnson almost went 4 wide there, was able to get down in line in front of McMurray, but that was very nearly an accident.
You talking about 3 wide being a struggle here. 4 wide is nigh on impossible, so it was lucky that 48 managed to find a way in front of McMurray to avoid causing an accident. Harvick's still in the lead in front of the field, still a lot of 3 wide. Seeing Elliott Sadler getting squeezed, or squeezing the 55 of Mears going into turn 1 there. These guys are getting very antsy and very close, and we're not even 10 laps into it.
Yeah, definitely seeing a lot more aggression early than I thought we would see, but it's just a testament to how bad these guys want it. If you were to ask any driver in the garage area, what's the #1 race that you want to win above all else, I guarantee all of them would say the Daytona 500.
It is such a prestigious race, and for very, very good reason, as Harvick continuing to lead in front of Wimmer's number 23. Biffle in line as well in the 16. And contact in the back. The field flies apart at the back of the field. Around goes Rudiman in front of everybody. Wrecking hard outside pole sitter. Martin Truex Jr. is involved in it. 54 of Mayfield, Jeff Burton, Kyle Busch, Montoya, Villeneuve, Keselowski, and others as they flew apart at the back of the field.
Yeah, it was a very, very big accident in the back half of the field, and a lot of good cars were taken out of that very early. Still have a lot of good cars left, but we'll have to see what happened to cause that, because that was a very big accident.
Looks like it was the usual culprit. Car got the wall out of the tri-oval top of 3 wide. We see a lot of that because of how narrow this racetrack is. Kevin Harvick leads at the yellow flag, and we are under caution for the first time here today. So the yellow flag comes, and it brings with it disaster for a lot of very, very good race cars. Double disaster for Petty. 54 and 43 were both involved in that accident. 54 looking a little less damaged than his partner, the 43 of Kyle Busch. But we're going to see exactly what caused this accident and who it was that got the wall out of the tri-oval to cause this wreck. Believe it was it was the 26 of McLaughlin, so the other Petty affiliated car that got up into the fence a little bit too hard and bounced down into the 98 of Rudiman, and everybody flew apart thanks to it. See, Jeff Burton got the inside wall there, and that was a pretty hard impact to the outside wall as well. Didn't get hit by anybody else.
He is very lucky that he did not clip that opening to the wall there. It was pretty close, but a very hard shot to the outside wall.
Could not get it slowed down and clipped the inside wall with the lack of traction down there, all the dust. And we see Keselowski involved in it with some damage. Truex also back there got the wall as well, even harder than the 26. That got into Montoya's number 84, sent him for a spin. Nowhere for Villeneuve on debut to go, slammed right back into the 2 of Keselowski and the 98 of Rudiman. But this brings out our first yellow flag of the day. McLaughlin, after getting the wall, is going to stay out, but the majority of the field is going to come in. Couple of drivers stay out. Jimmy Johnson takes the lead. Jeff Gordon going to lead the field down pit road here. Didn't turn streamer mode on there. Oops. Should probably have that on. Apologies for the Discord noises, but nonetheless, forgot to turn streamer mode on. But majority of the field down pit road here, as I believe it is Wimmer who wins the race off of the pit lane, and Jimmy Johnson leads the field after staying out under that yellow flag. Lap number 12 here at Daytona. We'll be right back. Intermission here from the Daytona 500. Back from intermission here at Daytona as we get set to go green this time by. Jimmie Johnson stays out to take the lead. Lap number 15 at the restart this time, as 48.51, 40.0019 is going to be your top 5 coming back to the restart. One car immediately out of the race is the 49 of Villeneuve. Number 2 of Keselowski fell a lap down for repairs, and a couple other drivers that will probably miss out on minimum speed. Kyle Busch with a lot of damage on the front of his 43, really just still in the race to gain a couple spots on the drivers who already retired. Montoya with a little bit of damage to the front of his race car. We'll see if the 84 still has full speed in that engine after nosing it into the wall. It was a pretty soft hit for the 84. 98 got clobbered as well. Truex has some hefty damage, and Jeff Burton couldn't quite finish his repairs, so we'll see if the 8 comes down pit road again, taking the green flag this time. But pace car going to be in here for Jimmie Johnson's number 48 as he looks to take the restart here. Pace car goes in. Johnson to the stripe, into the restart box. Green flag flies, and we are back underway. Top 4 get away well. Edwards caught sleeping a little bit from that 5th position. And we see Kyle Busch in the back there already well off the pace.
Yeah, 43 at this point, just trying to log laps and get to the end of it for some points, but the thing is killed.
Keselowski's 2 also looks to be very heavily down on power. Even more so than that 43. Montoya is going to go around Kyle Busch here. And the rest of the pack is also going to get around this 43. Back up to speed as we get racing. Kenseth and a couple drivers back here. Mayfield seeming like he got away with it as well. Looking like his car is okay after that accident. Pretty much everybody who's still going here should be fine towards the end of this race, providing they don't get involved in another accident. Side by side for the lead. It's McMurray and the number 40 to the bottom, side by side with Johnson for first.
Polaroid Dodge out to the front. And Jamie's another guy who he does like this style of racing. Ever since the start of his career, he's been successful at it. We see him up front at these tracks more often than not. As now, as we said earlier in the broadcast, the last place starter was able to win this race last time. Last place starter Scott Wimmer out to the race lead.
And of course, worth mentioning, McMurray in the 40 car, his only win last year came at Talladega. He knows how to get it done at this type of racing and is one of the better plate racers in the field. Him and Wimmer both very, very competitive. And another driver you'd like to think of if you mention good plate racers, there's that 88 of Dale Jr. trying to take away the lead here on the bottom. But he's going to get split by Kevin Harvick in the 20 once again. That 20's got a really good race car here today, and he's looking to get the lead once more. You also saw the number 8 of Jeff Burton did, in fact, come back to pit road to finish repairs on his car. Number 2 of Keselowski and number 43 of Kyle Busch are both going to be out of this race, thanks to the damage on their race cars. Burton should be good to stay in, providing he still has some power left in his race car. Most of his damage was to the door, so we'll see if he gets up to speed proper. But the rest of the field still racing up front, still seeing 3 wide. Most of the field is still a part of this pack. Harvick got split despite leading that last time. Biffle had the lead for a moment, but now it's Kurt Busch in the 01 trying to take away the top spot on the low side.
Kurt Busch. We talk about the heartbreak that he had to endure last season. You know, the 2 engine failures that took him out of the championship. He is so driven, so hungry to get it done this year. I don't think I've ever seen a more hungry Kurt Busch. We talked to him, and he said that he's never been more driven than right now.
Absolutely, and it's any wonder that that's the case. Man, Kennington tried to throw a block there on Ricky Hendricks, number 5, couldn't do it. 5 joins up with his teammate Vickers on the bottom. Kurt Busch still has the lead off of turn 2, 3 wide throughout the field. Seeing Burton rejoining on the racetrack, obviously still checking him for minimum speed. Got a couple cars in the draft together, Rudiman and Truex, who are both pretty significantly off the speed and might be out of this race in a couple laps' time. Burton potentially could be out as well, despite the finished repairs to his race car. NASCAR going to give them a couple more laps of leeway as we hit just about a quarter of the way. It'll be a quarter of the way the next time by. Started on lap number 20 this time. Kurt Busch still leading this race. Vickers underneath his teammate, the 5 of Hendrick. Bobby Labonte, last year's Daytona 500 winner, on the bottom as well in the number 18. See him down there, but Vickers is going to cover him off and try to get Kurt Busch for the lead.
And behind him, the previous winner of this race, Bobby Labonte, sporting a brand new number 18 car. Always strong at this type of racing. Not a surprise at all to see him up towards the front.
Great start to this race for Gibbs as a whole. Pretty much all their cars have seen time at the front. We saw Edwards in the top 5 early in the race. Harvick has led quite a few laps, is up there in the lap sled compared to the rest of the field. We see Labonte now trying to lead laps for the first time here today, and he is going to take the top spot. Almost got split 3 by Stewart, but just about managed to hold him off. Leaving turn 2 now, but Tony Stewart is going to be able to get underneath of him down the back stretch. Help from Mears in the 55. And looking like Jeff Burton is going to have his race come to a close. And Rudiman and Truex both are going to be out of this race as well. Rough break for Truex especially. Had such a good race car. Was the outside pole sitter for today's race, and his day comes to an end early.
You know, when we talk about Casey Mears, the young driver, his family has such a rich history in the 500, but the Indy 500, this is new territory for them, and what a win it would be if a Mears could get a win at Daytona.
Absolutely, and for Casey, such a talented young man. We've seen him run the Busch season last year. He was in the 24 for Hendrick down there in that series, won a couple of times, and he's going to get split 3 wide here by Scott Riggs in the 57. But Mears is competitive and a very, very talented young driver. We talk about a lot of the talented young drivers that are coming into the series this year, kind of overshadowed by some of the names. You think of Keselowski, you think of Kennington, you think of Boyer, but Mears is not a driver to be scoffed at, and in that 55 car has a chance to do some special things this year. It's a competitive team. He's got a good race car underneath him, and he would love to be competitive this season in his rookie cup season.
Absolutely, and to be honest, you know, for the 55 car, it's hard to get much more dismal than it was last season. You know, having that car and their driver be suspended multiple races. You know, it's hard to find any sort of momentum when you're constantly having problems or under scrutiny. So having a young guy like Mears, who really hasn't caused any problems in his career, piloting that car, it's a breath of fresh air for that team, and hopefully they're able to find a little bit of confidence.
J.J. Yaley's number 10 is the next rookie to lead a lap, but now we see one of the more competitive cars from the duels, Clint Boyer, who led an impressive amount of laps in duel number 1, but he's going to get split 3 wide as Matt Kenseth, once again, that 17 looking uber competitive in this race, and he's trying to take the lead for yet another time.
For Matt Kenseth, his winless streak is starting to eclipse a number that he never thought it would reach. Matt is so good. He's a fantastic race car driver, and that Roush team really struggled last season. He really didn't get many opportunities to even compete for wins. And for a guy like Matt, that is such a tough break. We know how talented he is, and we know that if he has a car underneath him, he is absolutely capable of winning races, and I look for that to end this season.
Roush is definitely looking like they brought some more competitive cars this year, and Jack Roush said, I like where our program's at. Downsized a couple times this year, only 2 full-time cars, and also the 6 of Scott Steckley, the part-timer for them, is leading this race right now. Got another part-timer, Justin Allgaier's 02 right behind him. Jeff Gordon, who led the opening lap of this race on the bottom, trying to take second. But the Canadian Steckley out front, we mentioned him running full-time in the Busch Series this year in the number 9, previously piloted by Marcos Ambrose, who failed to qualify for this Daytona 500. And that 6 car, making its first race since race number 24 last year, was driven by John Wood before it shuttered in the middle of the season. If that goes to tell you what the situation was for Roush last year, that's about as good of a tell as you can get. But they're looking better this year. And Steckley, next Roush car to lead a lap. Ron Hornaday Jr. in the Phoenix 1 car making its return to the Cup Series is Phoenix Racing. Picked up Ron Hornaday Jr., and he is going to try and take the lead here on the backstretch, see if Steckley can cover him.
Got a push from Mayfield, who appears to not be too worse for wear after that crash.
Definitely seems like the 54 got off the best out of any of the drivers who were involved in that accident. And he moves into third. Steckley still in the lead off of turn number 4. Hornaday up to the top. Mayfield looking for second behind this 6.
Steckley put a big block on Ron Hornaday there. Was clear, but it shoves the one up to the high side. And Steckley doing a really good job here in his Cup debut, I believe.
That it would be.
I believe he's doing a very good job leading this field for the first time in his career.
Might be trouble back there, never mind. Saw 4 wide in the back of the field. It was Mears Yaley stuck in the middle of that one. They managed to sort it out back there. Steckley still in the lead. Of course, we talk about these guys, these Canadians. There's a lot of them coming over into NASCAR. We saw it with DJ Kennington, kind of opened the floodgates. We've seen a lot of Canadian Series drivers. We've seen a lot of Mexico Series drivers making their debuts in Busch this year. Drivers like Rogelio Lopez in the 1 for Phoenix. We've seen a lot of those guys making their debuts. Of course, Steckley, one of them, in the number 9 and also the number 6 in Cup. And it's really exciting to see. We've never really seen anything like that, where we're seeing these secondary series drivers from the other countries come over and start running in the main series. And it's really just exciting to see. It's so much talent that could be tapped into over there. Kennington really proved that. One of the better drivers we've ever seen make their debuts in NASCAR over in the United States, and Steckley, yet another one of them that's coming over from Canada.
And it's good for teams too, because as much as you are a little hesitant maybe about hiring a guy out of a series where you don't really run the big tracks, usually companies are so willing to sponsor those guys. Canadian companies like Canadian Tire for Scott Steckley, usually they are so willing to sponsor because it gets their names out there. And we're going to see it a lot with the Mexico guys as well, that companies based in their home countries are so willing to sponsor, and that is fantastic news for any race car.
Man, how about this number 6 car? Just cleared on the top going into turn number 1 and ran all the way back up on the 19 of Carl Edwards. He's going to retake the lead.
Scott Steckley looks like a man on a mission right now. That 6 car, bad fast. All the Roush cars, bad fast. But that 6 especially is impressing me.
Let another lap is going to get shuffled back to the top. This time is Murray, followed by Wimmer. We talked about those two who were side by side for the lead earlier. Them and Junior all still together. Impressive. They managed to stay in one spot, and now they're all going to retake the lead as the 40 goes back to first down the backstretch. Be 30 laps completed in the Daytona 500 this time. Jamie McMurray trying to lead that lap. Dale Jr. underneath of Wimmer for second, and the driver we were talking about that opened the floodgates for all these Canadian and Mexico Series drivers is DJ Kennington in the 81. The one and only Gibbs car we haven't really had too much of a chance to talk about in today's race. Mentioned him once or twice, but making an appearance now. He moves into third. Jimmy Johnson might try to get underneath him going into turn 1, and he will. Kennington thought about trying to block him, but was not clear. Spotter probably giving him a little message in your ear. You're not clear to the bottom, and Kennington has to stick to the top for the 48 car. McMurray still in the lead down the backstretch. Earnhardt Jr. right in line behind. He's going to jump to the bottom to try to take the lead back for himself.
Yeah, Junior took a look into turn 1, a little bit of a late move. McMurray able to cover that, but this time 40 doesn't have anything for Dale Jr. 88 back out to the race lead, and we talk about the winless streak for Dale Jr. It's been a long time since he's entered victory lane, as we're really starting to get tight here.
4 wide at the front of the field. McMurray brushes the wall, still 4 wide, and that is not going to work!
Go. 26 around.
Somehow everyone for the moment ended up facing the right way, and now they're not. Around goes the 0-0 of Leffler, and he goes over.
Leffler up and over, down on the banking, able to land on his wheels. It looks like that car got to keep going, but a lot of good cars torn up in that.
Second caution of the day. Carl Edwards, the 19, involved in it. We see Casey Kane's number 12. Already was having a rough race, hadn't seen much of the front of the field, and now he's got damage. Number 5 of Hendrick, number 44 of Vickers. Robbie Gordon, the pole sitter, involved in it.
And that was just a product of four wide racing at Daytona. We see it all the time. As soon as they get four wide, it's very difficult to keep them going the right direction.
And Dale Earnhardt Jr. thanking his lucky stars. He was in front of that one, and it was once again the 26 of Mike McLaughlin.
Gets spun around.
Managed to end up facing the right way, got tapped by Kennington, and ended up going the right direction again. But that did not survive behind.
Did sustain a little bit of damage to the front end, so we'll see what the engine health of that 26 is. But it's very possible that he could still be up to speed here.
Got tapped into the wall, and Kennington got the fence there. McMurray bounced off of it. Edwards was into the back of his teammate there, and that's what started the pile-up. 6 of Steckley, who we were talking about had such a good race car, got just a little bit of a piece of it on the front of his car, and also the right side on the wall. Jeff Gordon got into the fence there, as did the 30 of Casey Atwood. Brian Keselowski also having to do his best to try and avoid that. Believe he might have just given a tap to Robbie Gordon, and he did brush and trade a little bit of paint with the 31, and of course Leffler went up and over. Nowhere for Casey Kane's number 12 to go. The 51 of Eric Norris also couldn't get anywhere out of the way of that. Just a tough accident, and yet another big crash with drivers getting into each other in that run towards turn 1. But we see the field coming down pit road here on lap number 33.
Saw a little bit of contact there between Jeremy Mayfield and I believe that was Todd Bodine. Slight contact. Don't know if there was much damage done, but a little bit of a stack up here.
Into the pits. And McLaughlin actually didn't pit in on the last caution, so he didn't repair any of the damage to the right side of his race car. So his team's going to be breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief to make sure they can get that car patched up. Everybody leaving the pits now. Scott Wimmer wins the race off of pit road on lap number 34. And goodness, a lot of damage to the front of the 10 of J.J. Yaley, who I believe got involved in an accident in the pit lane, yes, and it was with the 6 of Steckley and the 42 of Tony Stewart.
That was major contact to the rear end of Tony Stewart's car, so we'll have to see how his car handles as well. He was up towards the front of this field, but Yaley all torn up.
Looking like there's a lot of steam out of the 10 there, probably punctured the radiator. That is disastrous for that 10 car, and he will probably not see the end of this race thanks to that incident. But we take it to intermission here at Daytona with Scott Wimmer now leading this race, lap number 34 in the 49th Daytona 500, and we will be right back here on NASCAR on ESPN. Back from intermission here at Daytona as we get set to roll on this next restart. Taking the green flag in the lead is going to be Scott Wimmer, winner off of pit road. Top 5 goes Wimmer, Mears, Busch, Jr., and Boyer, number 4 car in P5. A lot of cars involved in that one, a lot of cars with damage. We see Kane, Hendrick, McMurray was involved in it, of course. Really rough for the 40 car. He had a competitive day going. Robbie Gordon, the pole sitter without a hood, probably will not finish this race. Looking to just log some positions, as we mentioned. And then will probably fail minimum speed. Steckley, the incident on pit road with Yaley, has a bit of a damaged front end. Really rough for that 6. But we're coming back to the restart on lap number 37 for Wimmer. The number 23 car takes the field back to the green, and we're underway once again.
Kurt Busch wasting no time, taking a look to the top lane. Nothing doing there. Elliott Sadler, the first one we see up there on the top. Is Kurt Busch going to cross over down to the bottom?
Mears really caught
looking
sleep in
sporty.
there. Number 4 of Boyer follows. Wimmer to the lead and holding on to it down the backstretch is Kurt Busch with a very competitive car. We mentioned it already. That thing looks pretty damn quick. And he's got a great car underneath him. Moves into second, trying to get underneath Wimmer. Wimmer almost blocked him and almost cleared himself. Busch got underneath him. Here comes the 01 to try and retake the lead. Help from the 4 of Boyer.
That Morgan McClure 4 is no stranger to success here in the Daytona 500. He's had 2 wins with Sterling Marlin in that car. And looking to rekindle some magic here, Clint Boyer has really breathed some life into this team. They were on the ropes with Hank Parker Jr., just a lot of bad luck and bad incidents. But Clint Boyer has been very, very strong in that car.
2 cars immediately flagged for minimum speed. Casey Kane's number 12 and Robbie Gordon's number 31. So a couple of potential contending cars taken out of this race. Ricky Hendrick and Brian Vickers just about holding on to the draft of this now secondary pack. It's got a couple of slower cars with damage leading it. Justin Allgaier's number 02, I believe, has a bit of damage on the front. I believe he might have sustained that from an incident on pit road. They're splitting him 3 wide. Steckley gets past him. 34 of Brian Kozlowski working to get around that 02 as well. So now 2 packs. Front pack at the moment consists of 14 cars right now. As Kurt Busch holding the lead, approaching halfway in the 2007 Daytona 500.
Kevin Harvick, that 20 is really, really fast. Able to make a move for second. We'll see if he has anything for the lead here. That 20 might be the best car in the field today.
And he is right away going to get underneath of Kurt Busch, take his teammate Labonte with him, and go for the lead. The 01 and the 20 probably have the 2 best cars on the entire racetrack here today, and it is any wonder that they have combined for probably the most laps led tonight. Harvick to the point, Labonte with him. As a 20 and 18, Gibbs has been competitive. Of course, Kennington and Edwards damaged and out of the race, but they have had such fast race cars today. They still got 2 of them left, and they are 1-2 right now.
Followed by the 57, the PPC entry of Scott Riggs. The Roush 17, Matt Kenseth, another really strong car in this race, taking a look for third. Nothing doing there. But as we see in this front pack, a lot of the fastest cars of the race have found their way to the front when it's starting to spread out.
Halfway into the Daytona 500, 40 down, 40 to go, as the 18 and 20 sit in the lead of this race. Labonte helping Harvick lead some laps right now. Kenseth going to get filtered up to the top as Jimmy Johnson takes his teammate Mears with him on the bottom. How about that 07? Ryan McGlynn, his self-owned entry, which found sponsorship from Blockbuster this year, is an outlier amidst this front pack.
Absolutely, and what a story it would be. You know, back in the 50s, in the 60s, it was pretty common to see, you know, independent car owners and owner drivers winning this race, but nowadays it's a not only a rarity, it has gone extinct. And what would be absolutely unbelievable if Ryan McGlynn could take his 07 to Daytona victory lane.
Seems like he's got not too shabby of a car underneath him. He's going for second place underneath of Casey Mears. Jimmy Johnson, the 48, takes the lead away from the Gibbs duo. Puts his 48 back in front. McGlynn with a big run out of turn number 2. See if he takes it to the bottom. Looking like Wimmer is instead going to take an even bigger run to second place. But that 07, not too shabby right now. A couple more cars that are going to fail minimum speed. Number 02 of Justin Allgaier. Rough break for the rookie, making a part-time start here today. Montoya just about fast enough despite the lack of draft. About 180 is what you want to target, and it seems like that 84 is just about on minimum speed here today.
Yeah, and unfortunate for Montoya, who I believe is making his first start in this race. You know, coming over from the Formula One side of things, very, very good driver over there. A lot of guys have high hopes for him, and he's on a very good team. That is not the way that he wanted his first Daytona 500 end. It's not over yet, but he needs to find some draft here and find it quick.
Ryan Vickers also dropped off of the draft in the 44, another car that I do believe is going to meet minimum speed. Steckley has slowly begun to slip backwards. Think that 6 car is just about worse for wear thanks to the little tap on the front to Yaley's number 10 in the pit lane that we saw. And it could very well spell the end to his night, which is really rough for him. That was a very fast race car. You see McLaughlin, who was involved in both of the accidents in today's race, has begun to fall backwards as well. This pack is kind of starting to dip out the stragglers, and is mostly just the clean cars left. A couple of them that have been damaged that are still a part of it. McMurray's number 40, Tony Stewart, with damage on the back of his 42, is still in this race as well. Pretty much all these guys are going to stay in this race, but they're a part of this secondary pack now that are going to need another yellow in order to get back into contention for the win. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s number 88 is the next car out in the lead. Jeff Gordon trying to take Hornaday Jr. to the bottom for second place, and he managed to force him up the track with a little bit of aero help. So now the 24 trying to get back to the low side.
24, the winner of his duel, has had a very strong car in this race. Hasn't really had the track position, but has started to find it here later in the going of this race. That 24 could be a player here as we get down to the very end of this race.
Laps continuing to wind away. Still a 14-car pack up for the lead. Dale Earnhardt Jr. still leading. Kurt Busch with his strong race car almost got underneath Gordon for second. Didn't manage it. And he will do it this time. That 01 looking hungry, as he mentioned, and has the car to do it. Takes Kenseth with him. Might have a shot at Earnhardt Jr. for the lead.
And how about Ryan McGlynn, man, back on the bottom? Got the draft. I mean, that 07, we don't talk about him really at all, but as an owner driver, again, what an unbelievable showing it would be if he could grab a victory in this Daytona 500.
Even just running up front with the big guns, even finishing last in this pack would be impressive for that 07. It has been a fantastic race for him. Kenseth going to go underneath of Kurt Busch for second place. Battle for the top spots continues here today. Dale Earnhardt Jr. still covering off the field beautifully. And that secondary pack, we keep talking about them, trailing by a bit. They are a couple miles an hour slower per lap than the race leaders. So they are not making any headway on this front pack right now. Their laps have been slower. Just needing the yellow to maybe get back up there and have a shot at the lead. There's a couple of cars that are in another pack that are damaged. 26, 6, 5, and 51 are cars that were involved in that last caution. Vickers out of the draft, obviously. We see him off the pace. Montoya just a little bit faster than him on a lap-by-lap basis, so we might see these two draft together. Dale Earnhardt Jr. still out front. McGlynn to second, trying to block Mears for that position right now. And managing to pull it off.
07 looking about as sporty as that car can look. Up here in second place of this race. We'll see if he were able to get the lead. We'll see what he can do with it, because it's a lot harder in underpowered equipment to be able to actually lead the race than sitting in the draft. So we could see some guys try to shuffle him out here.
Harvick almost tried to jump in front of the 23 of Wimmer there, could not manage it. Better move to stay patient. Jimmy Johnson stuck in the middle of 3 wide back there.
Dale Jr. continuing to lead laps in this race. We talk about the fact that, he is no stranger to success at plate tracks. Helps when your dad's the greatest to ever do it on these type of race tracks. But Dale Jr. hungry to grab a win, and what a place to do it if he could do it today.
Without a question, here comes Scott Wimmer trying to take away second from that 07 car. Headed into turn number 1. 88, 23, 16. The cars lined up on the bottom. Jeff Gordon, 4th in line. Matt Kenseth, 5th in line. Everybody's still eyeing for a spot. And also worth mentioning, I do believe, given that we were prior to the halfway mark on that last yellow, we might see one more pit stop and should see one more pit stop in this race. So this thing is far from over.
This is a hard track to be able to pit at. It's hard to, get out of the draft and not get ran into. You got to try to work your way to the bottom, but could be an opportunity for maybe one of the second pack guys to do something crazy in the pits to try to get themselves back up here, but I think they might just be a little too far back at this point.
They are quite a long way out of the draft. Worth checking that gap, which is about 8 seconds between the last car in this pack and the leader of the secondary pack, which is the 21 car of John Andretti. They are single file trying to work together back there, but just don't quite have the power in numbers or the power in strength. Obviously, you mentioned those cars are pretty heavily damaged, or at least a couple of them are. McMurray dropped out of the draft, as did Stewart. Excuse me. Number 34 of Keselowski also struggling to hang on to this pack. Number 30 of Atwood was partially involved in that last crash. He got into the fence, got his right side repaired, but not a perfect race car. Sadler Mayfield was also involved in an accident. Andretti, I do not believe, has been. But got a lot of partial strength cars back there, and of course definitely not enough of them to catch up to this front pack, which is significantly stronger in numbers.
Absolutely, and what I am impressed with right now is the ability of Dale Jr. to lead this race. He has led more laps consecutively than I believe we have seen anybody lead in this race so far, and there are some really good race cars in this pack.
Absolutely, we've seen these guys, and they're really getting aggressive behind him, trying to get first chance and first dibs at taking that lead away. Labonte might have had a shot, couldn't pull it off, as Kevin Harvick went under his teammate. They just continue to fight for second, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. is controlling this pack beautifully. It is working out so well for him. He's led maybe about 10 laps in a row at this point.
Harvick wants to take a look underneath, can't do it. Ryan McGlynn trying to look for second once more. I'll tell you what, we keep talking about that 07. He's got a really, really good race car.
Wimmer once again is going to be the one to shuffle out the 07 cars. He goes to the bottom for third. Harvick, one of the more competitive cars, right behind. One of those drivers that's led a lot of laps in today's race and might have a shot at dethroning this 88. Wimmer behind him. Harvick just sticking in line. That 88 has something else underneath the hood. One of the better engines in the entire field, it seems like. That thing is just so powerful, and he continues to lead laps. Wimmer the next to maybe make a challenge for first. At the moment, going to stay behind, see if he tries anything going into turn 1. He doesn't have help out back, as Hornaday is just a little bit further behind, trying to catch back up in his Phoenix racing car. And once again, Junior's still clear going into turn 1.
Biffle gonna shuffle out Ron Hornaday for the third spot, pushed by his teammate Matt Kenseth, and Riggs behind him. But nobody close enough to get up to Scott Wimmer to give him a push past this 88, who still continues to lead this race.
And that is a man on a mission. We talked about it a couple times last season when he was in the top 5. Dale Earnhardt Jr., his last victory was race 9 of 2002. This marks the 5th year since that driver of the number 88 car, was in victory lane last, and what a story it would be for him to snap such a long winless streak at Daytona, of all places. And he would absolutely love to get it done, and he definitely seems like he's got the car to do it.
Definitely seems like he might. But these guys need to get sorted behind him. They want to try to make a charge.
Kenseth, Busch side by side for second. McGlynn back to the bottom in the 07 car. Mears behind him. Kurt Busch, yet another car that might have the power underneath him to challenge this 88, but it's a matter of cooperation behind, and McGlynn is going to have to stay in line. Doesn't have any run on the 01. Busch thinking about going to the bottom, and he will. Somebody finally going to be able to dethrone this 88 who has led like almost 15 laps in a row. But Kurt Busch to the bottom. Help from Ryan McGlynn and Kevin Harvick. Side by side down the backstretch for the lead. And Kurt Busch, another one of the dominant cars, to the front. But here comes McGlynn's 07 on the bottom.
Ryan McGlynn with the push. And out front, the 07 who has been looking for it for so long, finally able to get it. Can he get a lap led here? We get shoved up to the top, but I think it's going to be just enough to lead the lap.
And he will. So McGlynn had the lead of the stripe. Lap led for the 07. Lap cars up the road for the leaders. That's the 44 and 84. A couple of damaged cars that might be able to join this pack, but will fall a lap down. McGlynn top of 3 wide. Now here comes Scott Riggs' number 57 car on the bottom.
And I believe at this point we have seen everybody in this pack get a turn at the front of the field. But only one of them can end up winning this race, and we're going to see the aggression start to pick up, especially with one more pit stop on the way. Who's going to be able to get it done?
18 to Labonte to the lead off of turn 4. Riggs isn't going to be able to lead the lap. Johnson's got his teammate Gordon behind, going to go to the bottom on the 18 as they come up on the lappers, who are still single file in front of the leaders. Going to give them the best chance they can to get around them, but side by side for the lead. Not really where you want to be. And they're going to catch him right off the corner, which is not a great spot to do it. Actually, will be middle backstretch, it seems like. Johnson to the lead. Jeff Gordon underneath his teammate. Vickers in front of the 2 Hendrick teammates. See which lane the 44 picks up. He's going to pick up the bottom and take the 24 with him. Montoya staying low as well. Although might block this top coming off of turn number 4. Johnson to the outside to take the lead. Montoya is going to cover the 48 just about. So Johnson to the lead on the outside thanks to the help of his teammate Vickers blocking his other teammate Jeff Gordon. Montoya going to stick low. Johnson going to go high. All from the 18 to Labonte. Down the backstretch they go, side by side between the leader and the lappers. And Johnson is going to clear Montoya on the outside.
Take Labonte with him as those two are able to clear the lappers. See if they can get a little bit of a gap going.
Trying to tandem away from this front group. You see a couple cars switching high, trying to get past the 84 and 44. Labonte underneath of Jimmy Johnson for the lead. Riggs trying to figure out where to go, looking like he's going to stay on the bottom. Harvick trying to clear the 84 of Montoya as well. This is pretty much the final test for this 84 and 44 if they can stick with the leaders. And if they can't, would imagine that would be the end of their race. Vickers going to finally get out of the way of his teammate Jeff Gordon. Labonte to the point. Harvick trying to get underneath the Riggs to get up to his teammate, and he does. Montoya seeming like he's got enough speed to stay with these guys for the most part. Vickers maybe not.
Yeah, cannot say the same about Brian Vickers. He was really holding those guys up on the bottom, but Montoya looks like he's got at least a little bit of speed. Definitely not as fast as these leaders, but is at least able to keep up somewhat.
Really rough break for the 1 and 23 as Hornaday Jr. with a car that already was struggling to hold the draft earlier begins to drop off. Wimmer's going to have to go to the outside. I think the 23 has enough of a car to stay here, but really needs to get past that 44 and is struggling to do it. Would be a really rough break if the 23 lost the draft here, but he is going to clear the 44 of Vickers, who is now going to be taken out of this race. NASCAR has decided they've seen enough out of the 44, couldn't hold the lead pack. And he will be taken out of this race this next time by. Labonte's still in the lead. Junior tried to get underneath him and retake the top spot, could not manage to get underneath. Wimmer did hold on to the draft, as did the one of Hornaday, so no harm, no foul. Montoya still a member of this lead pack. Still obviously down a little bit of speed, but managing to hold on and stay in this race. Which is good news for him.
Ryan McGlynn gets 3 wide into the top. Looked like he was a little indecisive on what lane he wanted to go down on the backstretch. Ends up catching the wall there out of turn 4.
Seen a lot of these guys catching the wall. It is a narrow racetrack, and it's hard to be 3 wide. Obviously, we see these guys brush the wall pretty frequently out of the tri-oval, but now it's the most dominant car of the latter half of this race. Inside the final 20 laps, Dale Earnhardt Jr. back to the lead.
And Juan Montoya able to keep up. Still up here in this main pack. Not racing for the win, but up here nonetheless. 84 looks like it still has a good amount of speed within it.
Rough break for Steckley, who's lost the draft of this secondary pack that's in front of him. We have 2 secondary packs now. Smaller one is the one that's further up front. It's been led by Andretti and the 83 of Sadler for the majority of this portion of the race. Those guys still definitely seem like they're competitive enough to be a part of this lead pack if a caution were to fly. But they really need that to happen sooner rather than later. Montoya kind of caught in the middle back there in front of these guys, forcing the pack to string out a little bit. Trying to figure out who to get in front of. Single file all the way back to Kurt Busch, who's about 10th in line. Kevin Harvick is going to duck underneath Jeff Gordon to try to take second. Dale Jr. once again is on a streak of leading laps. See if the 20 has anything for this 88.
I'll tell you what, if these guys aren't careful getting past this 84, they could lose the draft themselves, as Wimmer going to come into the pits here.
And it is pit stop time. Wimmer getting a bit unlucky. He's the only taker that time. None of this second pack are going to pit in either. Wimmer was the only one to come in that time by. So now here comes the money stop.
And that is a rough big break for Scott Wimmer. It is so important at a plate track like this to have some help on your outlap to be able to gain as much speed as possible when things cycle through. So unfortunately for Scott Wimmer, that could be the end of his run for the Daytona 500 win.
More cars may be planning to pit pretty soon here. Looking like we're not going to see any takers. And the answer will be no, so Wimmer probably just a little short on fuel compared to everybody else in this pack, which is a really rough break for him. And the fact that nobody came in the lap after, you had to hope that somebody would come in the next lap so you'd at least have somebody after a lap of running by yourself, but it's looking like that is going to crater the chances for the 23 car.
And highly unfortunate, because that 23 was bad fast too. We saw him multiple times carve his way through that pack. He had a car that could have potentially won this race.
Montoya's number 84 losing the draft, so he's going to be taken out of this race as well. So Montoya going to be a DNF. Nobody else coming into the pit lane, so all the leaders continue to run. Inside 15 to go, now 14 to go for the leader, Dale Earnhardt Jr. But Kurt Busch is going to be the next one to dethrone this 88. Here comes the 01, another one of the quickest cars of the day, and he goes to the bottom. Wimmer, after leaving the pits, getting caught by the leaders here.
And that is such a rough break for Scott Wimmer.
Unbelievably rough.
Kurt Busch out here leading this race. Clint Boyer trying to make a move underneath him, is going to get underneath him here in turn 3. The Morgan McClure 4-car, again, no stranger to victory at Daytona. Can they do it again with this young driver?
Another
Is
single
Harvick
hitter.
going to come in all by himself?
Kevin Harvick. Boyer
And a
leads the
very
lap.
good car.
Another
Very
good car
good
in,
car.
yes.
Definitely.
Absolutely, another good car in by himself, but we might see some more guys start to come in. Wimmer in front of the pack, going to get picked up by Boyer here as the 01 is going to go to the outside. See if Wimmer can get in front of him, and he did, so that equals out the playing field for these guys. Number 6 of Steckley is another damaged car that is going to be taken out of this race. NASCAR is going to call him off the track in a timely manner. Up the racetrack, seeing maybe a couple hitters. Not quite. They were just given the 6-car room. Tough break for Riggs, who is going to get caught in the middle. Boyer, another lap led. Wimmer, the lap car on the outside. Of course, he's competitive. We saw him in the lead pack. Just rough pit stop call for him. No takers that time. So now Harvick is probably going to drop out of the contention for the win of this race, barring a yellow. 3 deep in this pack.
Gordon and McGlynn on the bottom, Boyer and Riggs in the middle, and the lapped Wimmer and Busch on the top. And just so unfortunate for Wimmer. We know he has a car that can compete in this pack. Do not expect him to get pulled off the racetrack. But 3 by 3 behind Jeff Gordon, who has cleared these guys.
Gordon's got the lead out of turn number 4. McGlynn going to try to go to the bottom again. 24 staying in front of him. Jeff Gordon has the lead that time by. We're getting closer and closer to the question of if these guys can make it all the way to the end entirely. It's going to be really tight. Again, we expected to see a final pit stop. We saw a couple of these guys pit in. Number 20 of Harvick obviously did. Number 23 of Wimmer. 2 guys who are in this front pack. It'll be 10 laps to go this time.
Coming to 10 laps to go. I mean, there is still plenty of time to put a splash in it if you need a splash of fuel. But at this point, yeah, the question starting to become, can they make it?
24 is the next car in by himself.
And a surprise to see all of these guys who have pitted so far have pitted completely on their own. Really, really surprised that we have not seen the pack come in yet.
Well, you talk about the fact that these cars are less aerodynamic than the cars were last year. You might be seeing a little bit of fuel saving from some drivers managing to make it farther than others. And also worth mentioning the split strategy. We saw some drivers stay out on the last caution. Do believe that 24 was one of them. And a couple of these guys that have just stayed out a little bit longer, and it's really paying off for them, but we're going to see maybe a couple more takers. Boyer's up the track to give room to some pitters here. Maybe. Never mind. None of them came in that time. Believe at least one car had their hand out the window but couldn't get to the bottom. 9 laps to go. Kenseth had the lead that time. Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the bottom. Help from Kurt Busch. Lap car up the road is Harvick, who already pit. There's one other taker so far, the 38 car of Ryan Newman, who was not a part of this lead pack.
And as we start to get down to crunch time, the question is, can they make it? I don't believe that they can, but it would be very impressive if one of these guys could stretch the fuel long enough to make it. We do expect to see some pitters, and when they do, looks like McGlynn's going to be in here.
We're going to see a group this time. 18,
McGlynn.
07, 01, 88.
Yeah, and this is the first group of pitters that we've seen, so we'll see what kind of headway they can make.
Kenseth behind the lap car, Wimmer to the lead.
He's got a little bit of a gap here, so I'm going to expect to see the rest of these guys come in within the subsequent laps, but this is going to be roughly a 10-car race for the win.
It's the money stop now. This is where these pit crews make their money, and this is the most important pit stop of potentially the entire season for some of these guys. Boyer up to the top of the racetrack to give room to more pitters. Looking like he's going to stay with Wimmer an extra lap. Lucky for the 4 that he's got any sort of extra help. He'll stay out another time. Led that lap. 6 7 to go. Kenseth, the leader that last time by, leads the majority of the lead pack in. And it'll be fuel only for all of these race leaders. Kenseth is going to get away.
Really good stuff from Scott Riggs. Very good stop. As we'll see as these guys come out, where they cycle in relation to the guys who pit on the previous lap. McGlynn, Labonte, and I believe there were 2 more. Dale Jr., I believe, was one of them.
Seeing these lap cars get by, these are guys that were a part of this second pack. Ricky Hendrick, Ryan Newman, McLaughlin, and Tony Stewart, all damaged cars. As Kenseth is getting back up to speed, believe Boyer should be in now. Going to check up on that 4 car, and he is. See if staying out with that number 23 helps him out a little bit. Kenseth and Riggs well out in front of Kurt Busch and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Seeing Jeff Gordon is going to be with some of these guys, so he pit just late enough to stick with some of them. Sadler leaves the pits with Wimmer. Really rough break for that 23, obviously. He's a little bit of a ways out of this thing. It's going to be not a lot of people fighting for this lead. Boyer is away. Johnson and Biffle are together. Bobby Labonte, who was already up to speed, catches up to them and goes around the outside. 4 cars is actually the count up front right now. Might be more. Boyer leaving the pits into number 4. Just a bit in front of these leaders, but he's still down about 20 miles an hour. We'll see if it works out for him. He should at the very least be with the leaders. It'll be close. It'll be 5 to go in the 2007 Daytona 500, this time by.
As Clint still trying to get up to speed, but the more he gets up to speed, the closer it looks like that he might have the lead of this race.
He has the lead at the line. The number 17 still closing at a rate of about 20, but it's looking like he will get around the 4. Going to maybe try to go to the top. Boyer trying to block him. Managed to do it. Here comes Riggs on the outside.
Managed to do it for a second, but had to get out of the way or else the 17 was going to run right through him. It's going to be a 5-car race for the win. Who's going to do it?
Busch almost got underneath of Kenseth to take it 3 wide for the lead. 17 to the point. 4 laps to go at the line. 2 of the most dominant cars are in it. It's Kurt Busch and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Count it 3 with Matt Kenseth, number 17, and a couple of underdogs, the 4 and 57.
But if you're the 4 or the 57, you need to get down to the bottom, and you need to get down to the bottom right now.
Lap cars up the road for the leaders. They're not going to be taken out of the race at this point. So they're going to have to time it perfectly. 17:01 out in front of the field with 4 laps left. Pulled away.
Really struggling to get past these guys on the top lane. Boyer going to be able to get down. Kurt Busch going to take a look for the race lead.
Busch to the bottom. 17 versus 01 for first. 26, the lap car up the road, will be pulled off the track. Rest of them will not. They are going to be able to give room to this 26 as he pulls off the track. Here comes Boyer with a run down the front stretch. 3 laps to go at Daytona.
Boyer and Riggs were able to get down to the bottom. Like I said, they had to. And now with 3 laps to go, are within a shout at winning their first Daytona 500.
Believe we will actually be able to pull the rest of these guys off of the racetrack just in time for the race leader, Kurt Busch. Kenseth trying to get underneath the Riggs for second place. Boyer still in line behind the 01. Earnhardt Jr. seeming like something's amiss on that 88 car, really struggling to hold on to the lead pack. Lappers get out of the way for the leaders. Busch still has the lead. 2 laps to go in the Daytona 500 for Kurt Busch.
He has 2 hungry race car drivers behind him. Clint looking for his first win of his career. Matt Kenseth looking for his first win in a long time. And Scott Riggs also looking for his first win. Which one of these guys are going to be able to grab their grab this trophy?
Kenseth underneath the Boyer for second. Down the back stretch they go with a lap and a half left. Can Kenseth stay underneath the 4 going into 3? He did.
But all this jostling is exactly what Kurt Busch wants to see. He wants to see them get side by side. Now coming to the white flag. Can Kurt Busch hold them off?
White flag in the air at Daytona. Last lap around. Kenseth trying to get past Boyer with help from Riggs to get to second place and have a chance at getting this 0-1, but Riggs almost took it 3 wide. He did. Underneath goes Riggs for second. This could be what Kurt Busch needs. Does he have enough to get back to the stripe without a fight from either of these guys from second and third?
Scott Riggs looking for help, doesn't find it. Side by side down into turn 3. Kurt Busch has to make one more block.
Through 3 and 4 for the final time. Last season for Kurt Busch ended in heartbreak. But this year for the 0-1, it starts off with a bang. Kurt Busch in the 0-1 is going to win the 2007 Daytona 500.
Unbelievable.
Riggs will finish in second. Third place, another top 5 at Daytona for the 4-team. Boyer with a great start to the season. Kenseth, oh so close. You gotta think if Riggs hadn't gotten underneath him in turn 1, he had a shot at that 0-1 car for the win there.
And what a race it was. One of the strongest cars of the race the entirety of the way throughout. Kurt Busch, with last season ending in misery, this one going to start out emphatically with a win in the Great American Race.
Last spot in the top 5 belonged to Dale Earnhardt Jr., who finished in 5th. Something was wrong with that car. In fact, I do believe he had damage on the front end that took him out of this race, Nate.
Let's see. Tony Stewart pulls out, and it wasn't him.
It was the 26 of Mike McLaughlin.
Man, truthfully, a day to forget for Mike McLaughlin. Was involved in a few incidents early in the race, and then seemingly cost Dale Jr. a chance at the win there. So unfortunate for that 26 team, and extremely heartbreaking for Dale Earnhardt Jr., the strongest car in this race. It has to be so frustrating to see the cars that you were leading for such a big portion of this race pull away from you when it matters most.
An absolutely unbelievable way for this race to end, and just 4 cars were in the pack for the win, and Matt Kenseth narrowly missed out. Riggs narrowly missed out. Only one of them can win it, and it's Kurt Busch in the 0-1 car, who comes home a winner here at Daytona. His first career Daytona 500 victory for that 0-1, and he does it emphatically. It was a day dominated by a handful of drivers who had far better cars than anybody else in the field, but only one of them could win it, and it is Kurt Busch who comes home a victor here today.
What a day it is for Chip Ganassi Racing, who said that they wanted to start out this year stronger so they could get that 0-1 car to where it needed to be earlier in the season. But unbelievable for Kurt Busch.
That will do it for coverage here from Daytona. Kurt Busch, 2007, your 49th annual Daytona 500 winner. A lot of action yet to come. We've got 35 more points races left on the slate and an exciting season yet to come your way. On behalf of Nate joining me in the booth here tonight, as always, a pleasure to have him along and a pleasure to have you along as well. We'll catch you next week. It'll be at Homestead, the Radio Shack 400 for race number 2 of the season. I'm Caden Reif. We'll catch you next time. And as always, have yourself a good one.
It's a long way to the top.